One of the many horrible chronic illnesses that I no longer have to deal with is occipital neuralgia, occipital migraines. I used to get occipital migraines. They began the day of a car accident where I was rear-ended. That was my first migraine in my whole life. And it was 2013, so I'd been suffering with the pelvic symptoms that I didn't yet know the cause of for about 2 years at that point, 2.5 years. I had recently diagnosed myself with PCOS, and then I had doctors sign off on that. And then I had tried to figure out how to help myself with that. And I saw a lot of the symptoms were like low estrogen, and I was on a low dose birth control pill at the time as treatment. And I did some investigating, and I found like evidence that I should actually be on a higher dose estrogen pill as someone with a PCOS diagnosis. And so I had recently gone on a higher dose estrogen pill, which had actually improved some of my pelvic symptoms. But for the next 3 years after that car accident, I suffered with at least maybe a couple times a month or weekly or all even during a whole week at some points, migraines, occipital migraines, like a stake up the back of my skull. Then the pain would come around here, shooting, stabbing. I had sensitivity to light. I had nausea. I would vomit. It was awful because standing up would make it better and lying down would make it worse, but the throbbing pain in your head would make you want to lie down. Except for me, anytime I lowered my head, especially if I could put it below my belly button or like bent over, that could actually trigger a migraine. So I soon started to notice the triggers. And the first thing I noticed was like muscle tension was a trigger. So like just normal activities like vacuuming, doing the dishes, driving, working on the computer, working on my keyboard, anything that was sort of having me using these neck and shoulder muscles up to here, tightening them would trigger this migraine. Now the interesting thing is that now that I know what the other triggers are and they are no longer in my life where I can control them, tight muscles alone do not cause migraines. The other two triggers were the birth control pill, the high estrogen, specifically birth control pill. And the second trigger was cymbalta, which was raising my blood pressure. So medications that affect blood pressure will trigger migraines for me. Medications that affect your blood sodium, I've always had very low blood sodium, affect your blood pressure, and will trigger migraines for me. So in 2016, when I got off the pill and cymbalta, all of a sudden my whole life got better because I had improvements, huge improvements for the first time in 5 years with my interstitial cystitis symptoms. I also stopped having gallbladder attacks and migraines. Now, if you've made it this far, I'm going to show you some interesting things, namely that the fact that the birth control pill and exogenous estrogen, so estrogen from outside the body, as well as just estrogen fluctuations, that is common medical knowledge. It is easy to find on the internet, whether you're looking in PubMed, which is the publications of medical journal articles, or just regular Google searches. This information is very findable. And yet, in the years that I was suffering, not a single doctor mentioned my hormones to me or the fact that I was on a high-dose estrogen pill. Apparently, the World Health Organization even said that women over 35 shouldn't use estrogen-based combined oral contraceptives and under 35 due to smoking. And smoking, by the way, and nicotine also affect your blood pressure. Don't ask me how I know that, but they can also trigger migraines. I mean, here's a Medical News Today site, which is not like a medical journal, but it links to medical journal articles. It's just stating out clearly that changes in female sex hormones can trigger migraine, and that it could depend on the dosage and type of pill, and that low-dose pills are less likely to cause this symptom, and that if you are maybe having endogenous estrogen causing your migraines, so like maybe super high levels of your natural estrogen, that the lowering effect, which the pill does suppress your estrogen levels, your endogenous estrogen levels that your body makes, that could also help your migraines. And of course, I just wanted to share, this is probably from a book by Dr. Sano or Howard Shubner or the guy who did the Curable app. I just want to say that when you're researching why you're getting these stabbing migraine headaches, and then you also have other chronic pain conditions, it's just so crazy how you're shoved down your throat this information about how it's your trauma and your anger and you're scared and it's your tense muscles. Well, yeah, tense muscles can contribute, but like clearly, if I had to just stop 2 medications and my occipital migraines essentially go away unless I do something like take another medication that affects my blood pressure, or drink a lot of alcohol, which affects my blood pressure, which is like taking a medication, or, experiment with hormone replacement medications and creams that can sort of get me back on. If I stop them suddenly, that's a huge fluctuation in estrogen. And the fact that these are very tangible physiological events, and yet in books And in medical journals and all over in doctors' offices, women are being told that their migraines are caused by their emotions, when that's not true. If I can go through the insane emotional roller coaster that I've been on and all the crazy events in my life, and the only thing determining whether or not I get occipital migraines is what I'm doing with estrogen replacement and estrogenic medications and what I'm doing with medications that affect my blood pressure, this has nothing to do with my anger or my fear or my emotions. So I hope if you're suffering from occipital migraines and you haven't yet, try exploring your hormone situation and also look into the medications that you're taking and other things that might affect your blood pressure, just in case that's contributing to triggering headaches for you. And also, I want to be clear that to me, exogenous synthetic estrogen has a really powerful effect on the body that is different than natural estrogen. And when I'm talking about HRT, I'm meaning transdermal or local to my vulva pelvic skin and not oral systemic. They have two different effects on the body, and I have really not had much of a problem with anything I put on my skin that was absorbed that way. I've had problems when I've taken oral herbs and supplements and pills that are synthetic estrogen containing or raising estrogen orally, which is metabolized differently in the body.